Hi, Tatisha. Good morning to you. How are you?
I'm good. Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Good. It's afternoon here. And what came up for us this week was that very often, like people ask us why, if intimacy and honesty, vulnerability, care, love, safety, they're all in essence our birthright, right? When a baby's born, that's our birthright to
Mhm.
be held safely and nurtured and guided and limited. And that's actually where we function optimally when we feel all of those things. That's when we're at our best health. But for many of us, that's very stressful to try and achieve that as adults, and we pull away from it, and we find ourselves very lonely and alone, and we think we're better off just not having that closeness and intimacy. What are your thoughts? And what can we
I
do about
definitely, I definitely feel like it depends on how you were raised.
it?
If you come from a family that value intimacy, that's always like parents that's always hugging and kissing and just truly being intimate in front of you in a way, they're lovable in front of you, and so that's how you were raised. I feel that can carry into adulthood, but when you come from a background that maybe didn't show that. And yes, when we were born, we're so innocent and you learn behaviors. And so when you have those learned behaviors, it can change as you get to an adult and become more closed off.
I love what you're saying. It's beautiful. So, what you're saying is that the wounding or the patterning that we see in childhood really affects the adult, which is so true. That's very profound. So,
Mhm.
if you feel abandoned is a big word. It could be abandonment. It could be your needs weren't met. You might become a love dependent and a love pursuant in the adult world. Love me, love me, love me. If you feel your parents were too intrusive and boundaries were crossed, as an adult, you might become walled off.
Mhm. Yes, no, I definitely agree with that. I
Your
feel,
reaction will be
mhm. Yeah.
walled off.
Not always, but usually it can be that way, or it could also be the fact that if you felt abandoned when you was a child, then you abandon people in adulthood, but you don't let them in. So you only let them come in so much, and then you push them away because that's the learned behavior that you was taught. Or it could be just like you said, you're constantly wanting reassurance that people want you and people want you in their lives and to feel connected because you didn't have that.
Right, right. So um, the distinction that you're making is that in when you're a child, abandonment means certain death. If you're physically abandoned or even you're not nourished or nurtured, you will die. But in adulthood, we talk about people leave me. They don't abandon me, but I'm not going to die if somebody leaves me. But that's the sense felt. That's the felt sense. People leave adults. People leave relationships. Um, and what would you see as a way to turn that around, to get more into the intimacy and the closeness that that we so desire, that really is a much healthier way of living? How do we get into that closeness?
Healthy relationships, having healthy relationships that teach those boundaries, that help you to be able to know that, okay, I am wanted in this relationship. I do have a role here. I'm not feeling abandoned here, and having, a spouse or a partner in a way that can reassure you when you do things start to come up. But you got to be careful with that too, because that could be codependency.
Hmm. Wow, yeah, that's profound. So when we
Mm-hmm.
talk about recovery, relational recovery, we want to look at that boundary
Mm-hmm.
spectrum, boundaryless, where I'm so porous, or let's start with the health, where I'm protected and connected. And if I'm boundaryless, I'm completely connected, but I'm completely porous and I'm dependent on what the outside world says about me, gives me, nourishes me, nurtures me. That's the dependence part.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm walled off, then I'm completely protected, but I have no connection. Whatever the world is saying doesn't necessarily come in. So, and maybe the more the intrusion from childhood, the thicker the wall. So I don't let anything in. And of course, we can't have intimacy without a healthy boundary. So part of coming back to relational recovery would be to make that boundary a little bit more flexible and porous, as well as protected, and
Mm-hmm.
make sure that what comes at you is like an egg being thrown at your windshield. Some of it's just going to come off, and take pause. Is that really about me, or is that about you? To take that pause and notice where that boundary is. Where do I stop and you begin? That we can also be two different people
Mm-hmm.
with different opinions, but we can be connected and linked. I see stuff's coming up for you. What's coming up for you?
No, I'm really trying to I'm processing it because it definitely makes sense. But as you saying that, what popped in my head is that you have to be ready for that. You have to be emotionally ready to be able to, like you said, take whatever drips down. Okay, that's done, that's off, and whatever's thrown at me, how do I process that in a healthy way and not making it about me?
Right. You have to be ready to want to learn, as you say, about boundaries, because the ultimate goal is really that we do want to live in connection
Mhm.
and closeness. And we need to understand that that boundary will also intersect with self esteem. We want to get into healthy self esteem where I am same as, my value is no more or no less than your value.
Mhm.
I might be a better swimmer and you might be a better driver than I am, but our value as human beings is same as, and that also needs to be recognized. I need to either bring myself up if I'm shame based, or bring myself down if I'm one up and I think I'm more special. Because again, intimacy happens in the center where healthy self-esteem is. Same as, I'm no more special and I'm no more worse than the next person.
Mhm. No, I definitely agree with that. And that's where the self work starts.
The what work, sorry?
Self work, working on yourself.
Yeah.
That's where that has to come into play. It always starts with yourself. And I think of, people that are single, and some people are just truly happy being single because they're able to be in their space and get to know who they are. So when they do become part of a relationship, they have that self work.
And that's beautiful. They've kind of built themselves up
Hmm.
before so they're not foisting their younger parts onto their partner. They're taking care of them, so to speak, before the intimate relationship comes, which is going to be triggering, which is going to continue that conversation that kind of wasn't finished with your parents, with your initial caretakers. Any final thoughts?
No, I think you wrapped it up well.
Okay, great. Well, this is another great talk. And just to remind people to invite themselves into thinking more about their boundaries, how they can come more into health and their self esteem, um, how they can come more into health and notice that they're no less than and no worse than the next person, and they can be protected at the same time as being connected. Thanks, Tatisha. Lovely speaking to you again.
Thank you.